Okay, today's video I'm going to be talking about the Yamaha stereo power amplifier model MX-2. This was one of two amplifiers Yamaha released that year in this series. They have the MX-1 and the MX-2. They share a manual. They share the same chassis size. Um, they do vary. The MX-1 is a larger amplifier. This being 150 watts at 8 ohm and the MX-1 being 200 watts at 8 ohm. Um, the rest of the specs on the MX-2 is 190 watts at 4 ohm and 230 watts a channel at 2 ohm. Now, that is one of the interesting things about the MX-2s and the MX-1s, MX-2s is they are designed and they're very capable of handling low impedance loads, which you don't generally see. It's not, unheard of, but it's not a common design element in a stereo amplifier for home audio. Um, they It also has quite a bit of headroom. At 8 ohms, it can do a dynamic number of 190 watts, 310 watts at 6 ohm, and 410 watts at 2 ohm. Um, then other important specs has a dampening factor of 350, and and that's through the entire bandwidth at 8 ohm, 20 to 20,000 hertz. Um, and it has a signal to noise ratio of 123 dB. Um, and then the channel separation is negative 30 dB. It weighs at 43 pounds. It's beastly. It's a very small chassis, but the transformers are massive in this thing, and they're even more so in the MX-1. The MX-1 obviously being the more sought after, so generally, a lot of times MX-2s can be had for quite a bit less money than an MX-1. Like anything else, the price fluctuates quite a bit on eBay. I find though that what they go for, like a lot of times you'll see people throw an oddball, like really high price, or an auction that'll go for a really low price. Um, the MX-2 doesn't really have, I don't know, it's all over the map. Anywhere from 200, which kind of rare to see that now, up to $600 I've seen these purchased for. I don't know, and it's hit or miss. You'll see a whole run of them, but generally only one or two at a time. I don't think they sold a whole ton of these because this was really late in the stereo amplifier market of that where it was not just like audiophiles, but a common thing in a separate system, um, or separate system period. Uh, the I think it was 93 or 94 when these came out. Um, it's an amazing sounding amplifier. I find that its bottom end is more pronounced than the M70, even though the M70 is at 200 watts per channel. The M70, it sounds a lot different. It's a Class A amplifier, so in the MX-2 is a Class AB. The MX-2, I'm guessing that's why it's capable of um, doing the low impedance. I don't know if a Class A would be, if you're able to really do low impedance on a Class A amp. I don't really know the answer to that. Um, it's I just find it odd that it was designed to do these low impedances. I mean, I've hooked up uh, two sets of speakers to it, and it doesn't get hot. I mean, this thing runs super cool. I see people say that a lot and on amplifiers, and then I'll buy them and I'll be like, this thing gets warm like anything else. The M70 gets warmer than anything else I've ever owned. I mean, that thing gets blazing hot. I was worried about like something was wrong with it when I got it. But then I was reading on it, and that's just kind of how they operate. Maybe most Class A's are like that. I've never owned another Class A amplifier, so that might be the explanation of that. But that's an extremely warm running amplifier. You can heat a room with it in the winter, but the MX-2 doesn't have that issue. Even at when I was driving two sets of speakers into a 4 ohm load, it didn't really get that warm, and that's I really pushing it for extended periods of time. Um, when I got this thing, it was my first separates component that I purchased, and I used it. I took out the jumper pins on the receiver that I used, the RXV 2092, and just ran my RCA cables right to this, and used this as my mains amp, and then used um, the rear channels for surround sound, and then the center channel off the V 2092. That's a beast of a receiver, so it's pretty powerful, but cannot nearly drive a cabinet as well as the MX2. The I ended up running this as my rears, the MX2, and then the M70 as my fronts, and then vice versa. Either way, and then I use the V 2092 as a center channel. Um, it's an amazing sounding home theater setup for movies. But this is a bit overkill. But then for music, I mean, either one's a good choice. But I don't know. The M70 is a little flashier. It's got the level meters. The MX2 is very, very low key and discreet looking. I actually purchased it from a pawn shop because it had sat there for years and years and years. Or I don't know, it was a long time. I'd seen this thing forever, and they kept marking down the price. And I finally walked out of there with it and I didn't know much about it at the time, but I don't know, it was like $120, which is a steal of a deal on one of these. Um, uh, and when I got it home and hooked it up, I was just super impressed. I've really been impressed overall. I can't speak of later products. The latest being like maybe like a 2006. I bought a um, maybe like it was I believe it was a 6 series um, RX RX dash V6 whatever it was. And because it had the HDMI input output capability, I wasn't really too impressed with that, and I haven't purchased a newer model Yamaha since. I own several of them that were older models, and the V 2092 being the flagship of '97, and I haven't used anything else. I've been using it for 10 years now, and and that's what I use as my preamp essentially. I do have, and you can see there's the 2092. And then on top of that is a C70. And I run that from time to time with turntables because it has an excellent phono section. And it has this really cool feature, the disc direct. And so basically, it shortens the path from the phono input to its output as much as possible. It eliminates the option of using the parametric EQ, but it kind of gives you, you know, the shortest path to your amplifier, and so the less components in the signal path. It's supposed to be the most natural sounding, the truest sound of the recording, and I don't always use that. I do like EQs. I don't have anything against them. I think that they can enrich the sound. Other people have a different opinion. They just want that straight signal, and I've used that too. And I find on some recordings it works, and other recordings I don't like it so much. I think it's all about the mastering and the just the production of the album, whether or not that works well. But yeah, so the MX2, it's just, I mean, it shines in all levels. It's kind of hard to put a finger on it. I have a hard time describing sound, but the M70 just it's a very special amplifier. It does not do well in like low end. Its bass output. Now it would put out plenty of bass. It's got lots of power, but the MX2 is just a monster. It just seems to drive the woofers of a enclosure or a cabinet better than the M70. Even the M70 has a massive transformer, but this has two, and it's being a monoblock, so maybe that design lends itself to driving the low end better. I'm not really sure. I'm not an electrical engineer, but Yeah, it's I don't know. I couldn't say I would buy another one in a heartbeat, especially at that price. But you know, I would say it would compare favorably to amplifiers selling used, in the 500 to even $600-700 range. And they can generally be had for a substantial amount less than that. Sometimes you will see them sell for a perfect model. Upwards of 500 to maybe $600. I think I've seen them go, but generally $200 to $300. If you're patient, you can find one for around there. Maybe not 200 so much anymore as of now, 2018, but just a couple years ago, these would sell frequently for around 250. But it varies a lot. They're not very common to find. I've seen up to three on eBay at once, but then there'll be months that go by where you won't see one. So, in the MX-1, kind of the same story. I would like to get my hands on one, but those generally go for around $900 or more. Low end for maybe one that's kind of nicked up. Maybe you can get one for 400 to 600, but generally not. Generally, it's more in 750 900. Would be a square deal, I suppose, for eBay prices. Um, I can't imagine why you would need that extra power because these are just the MX-2 is a very very powerful amplifier. But I would be interested to hear the MX-1 and see if I can really tell a difference. I would recommend the MX-2 to anybody, especially if you're finding one on Craigslist or something like that and you're getting a good deal. I mean, if it's $300 or less, 300 being I would say high end for like one that's in really good condition. I don't know, 200. I mean, I don't care what it looks like. This is a $200 amp all day. Um, there's not really a reason to display it prominently because I mean, this is it. Power button with a red light, speakers A and B with each, with a red light to tell you if you're running one or two, and that's it. There's nothing else to this amplifier. On the back, there's level inputs for right and left channel. That might be to level match the channels. I don't really know why you would need those. I leave them all the way up. I don't see a reason not to. Um, you know, and yeah, I've been more than impressed with it. I'm a fan of Yamaha products. People complain about them having a bright sound. I like that sound. When you pair them with clips with compression drivers, um, you know, you could say it's bright, but generally when I use when I've used other components like maybe like Denon, I've had a few Denon receivers. I've never had a Denon amplifier, um, but I turn the treble up. I leave everything dead flat, bass and treble flat, which some people say, oh, got to do that, because that's the recording was originally made. I like EQs. I like messing with them. Um, I think that they can add a lot to the sound of your room, depending on what size room, what's in it. Um, but I can leave that treble dead flat, which usually I always have that up a little bit, and there's no reason to. It's plenty bright, or I don't need more highs. So in that sense, I mean, I don't see why that's an issue. Maybe if it gets too bright, and the highs are like too pronounced, you can always even drop it, below zero. So, and take away from it a little bit. So I don't find that to be as much of an issue. I've heard with the courses you need to run them with a tube amplifier. To my ears, these things sound, all speakers, the Sermon Vegas, the AT10s, the um, D5s, and the Clips choruses all sound amazing with either one of these amplifiers. But the MX-2 does a fabulous job with all those. I have some Polk towers, and those have like two 6.5 drivers in a tweeter, like a 1 inch dome. Um, and it sounds really good with that. Maybe a little too much power for the Polks. I don't know. I'll have to look up the model number on those, but I don't know. I don't use those. Um, not bad speakers. They sound fantastic. But when I do a review of the V29.2, that has some interesting features. It's a 7.2 receiver, but it's not really a true 7 channel in the sense of like a Dolby mix of 7. It does this like with different sound fields. It did something with a extra two front channels, and I use the Polks for that, but it's really not. I don't know. It's kind of a funky deal. I'll get in more to it when I do a review on the 2092. But since I haven't used that, I generally run right now only stereo, and then so if I'm watching TV on this system, I will just use a center channel and the 2 main fronts. I don't have any rears hooked up currently. When I did with the M70 and the MX-2, in doing, I've used them both in different duties. So the M70 doing the fronts and the MX-2 doing the fronts and the other one doing the rears. And either or, it was an amazing sounding system. I always use the RXV 2092 for the center channel, and I was thinking about getting just a single monoblock Yamaha amp for just that, but there's really just no need for a center channel. I don't run a really large one. I run a clip center channel that was like mid-range in their lineup. So it's not very large, and if I got like a big one, maybe I'd do something like that. But really, I don't know, how loud do you need it to be? I mean, it's louder than any theater current, just because I use it in a smaller room. So I don't really have the need for it currently. But yeah, I would recommend this amplifier to anybody. If you find one, I mean, grab it. You won't be disappointed. I haven't read a poor review on one of these, and I can't imagine anybody giving it one that actually has owned one and used one and said, I just didn't like it. I can't imagine that being the case. It's, the thing's bulletproof. I mean, it's, going on, like 25 years old. Still works fantastic. Still sounds fantastic. Like I said, running cool. Being able to use it at any impedance you could possibly want for home use. I mean, all the way down to 2 ohms, and run it there comfortable that the thing's not going to get stupid hot. And I run it at 8 ohms, so I mean, it doesn't even, you can't even hardly feel that it's been running, even when I push my stuff pretty hard from time to time. I try to do it too often. Don't want to do that to the neighbors, but it's, I've never felt that this thing get hot, where I've had tons of problems with the M70. That thing just, it's like a furnace. But I mean, excellent sounding receiver. But the MX-2 to me sounds just as good. They do sound different. I guess if I had to get down to the bottom of it, I would say the MX-2 handles the lows better, and the M70 maybe handles the highs a little bit better. I'll play something real quick. I mean, really, when you're trying to capture the sound of something on a YouTube video, I mean, you're going through, what I have is a crappy phone, and and I'm recording on that, and then it goes to YouTube, and then you're listening to it through that on who knows what setup. Even if it's a really good setup, I don't know that really would, I mean, it doesn't, there's really no way. But, just for the heck of it, I'll throw something on real quick. But it's just a little MGMT track. But yeah, it's got plenty of power. Probably gonna sound pretty distorted, but it sounds fantastic here. Yeah, I mean, that's that was, I cranked the 2092 up to about the 12 o'clock, and that's not to say that that's half of what this thing can do. That's probably 3/4 power, I would say. I think you're going to start hearing clipping and distortion somewhere around maybe the 2 o'clock position. You might get a little bit past that, but I don't think so. Um, on the and you know I find the same thing with the C70 control amplifier, even though that's an amazing preamp. Um, I don't know. I guess I don't know why they don't design them to be pegged. They're both very linear as far as when you turn them up. Where I find later, Yamaha and everybody else, I guess Yamaha especially, just a total disconnect from where you are on the volume and what percentage you're getting out of the either that specific piece of equipment or the equipment that you're driving with it, which is kind of irritating to me. Um, I would rather just have them, be more like these older ones, where you know every little bit you go up, it just gets a little bit louder, a little bit louder, a little bit louder, and not just like nothing, 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 everything. I don't understand why that would be where you'd want to go with it. Another reason I don't use a C70 daily is there's no remote for this thing. So generally, if and I go through phases. If I go through like listening to vinyl, I'll hook it up. I think it's superior phono section to the 2092. Although that's no slouch, and its phono preamp is really good in that. But I mean, this whole thing was really designed to be a preamp for a turntable. So that's and it shows. I mean, and it's got that disc direct feature, which is. I don't know, when I review that, I'll get more into that. But um, yeah, paired with the MX2, I mean, I think you could use any preamp and be happy with the sound you're going to get out of it. It's just a really good sounding amplifier, for and an amplifier that sounds good on one type of music is probably going to sound good on all. I think maybe if you're into bass heavy music, the MX2 is going to be a lot better than like an M70. But um, other than that, I mean, I guess when people, if I was given some sort of advice, I would say, just go to something separate. I mean, it's kind of funny because I do use a receiver as my preamp, but I don't know, maybe the 2092 is just very good at that because it has RCA outputs for every single channel that's inside of it, center included. So I don't know, it works well as a preamp, a multi-channel preamp. But you know, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I would think the MX2 would do good with any type of preamp. Um, just kind of rambling at this point. I don't know what else to say about it. There's not really a lot of exciting features on the thing, but I just want to get across the point that it's very capable, and in every way I've used it, I've really, really enjoyed it. And that's all for this one.